143-318.11. I make a motion that the board enter into closed session to discuss personnel and to seek the guidance of our attorney to preserve attorney-client privilege.
Second.
We got a motion second going to closed session for said reasons. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We'll now move into closed session. Thank you. The board chair would entertain a motion to go back into open session.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to return to open session. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The Iredell-Statesville School Board of Education is now in regular session. It is our policy to begin our meeting with a moment of silence in which board members, staff, and guests may privately reflect in their own way on the business of this meeting. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, board members, are there any changes to our agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First of all, if you'll go to your personnel report, we would like to strike item 1 under terminations, and we would like to add under approval of administrative transfers Kim Fox from the TIMS coordinator to a combo position of transportation director and director of TIMS, which is Transportation Information Management System. So we're taking off one name and adding that.
Mr. Johnson, if we could have that under approval of administrative transfers.
Thank you, Dr. Lassane.
Okay, did everybody get that? We're striking one.
Termination.
Yep, and we're adding, be number 4, Kim Fox to approval of administrative transfers.
As opposed to licensed personnel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
We have 2 other things, Mr. Page. If you will strike item C from your non-consent agenda, the lottery application, and we'll bring that back to you next month. And we would like to add item G, budget resolution per your request yesterday, and you'll see a memo at your place for that. We would also like to add item H, which is the Harmony School resolution.
Board members, everybody get that G and H being added?
H is what?
Harmony School. These will be, G and H will be voting issues. Please note that. And keep me straight on that also. Board members, any other changes to the agenda? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion second to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. This time we'll move into our consent agenda. Dr. Lassane, personnel report.
Good evening, Mr. Page, Mr. Johnson, members of the board. You've had the opportunity to review the August personnel report along with the stated changes. I know you are also anxiously awaiting information on where we are as far as our preparation for the beginning of the school year. So this is hot off the press. So we even have some positions that are not online yet. But when we assess our positions and we look at recommendations, take off recommendations that we're already processing in the office, we had several resignations literally today. So we have 15 teacher positions open, 15 TA bus driver positions open, 3 counselor positions, and 5 custodian positions. And so we are working diligently to get all of those filled. We actually had quite a few resignations that we just received today. On top of that, we had the first day of new teacher orientation, 90 attendees today, excited group of individuals, very energetic, had a very good first day of new teacher orientation. So I'll entertain any questions regarding the August personnel report or any other HR-related questions that you may have at this time.
I enjoyed going over this morning meeting with a lot of the new teachers. I got there early enough. I got to walk around and speak to some of them, and it was very interesting to see the different demeanor of the ones that were so nervous. There were some of them, I mean, you could just look at them and you just, bless their heart, they were just, and then there were some that was just so excited. It was pretty easy to tell the first year teachers because they were,
Absolutely.
you know, but golly, I thought, and 42 years ago, I was sitting there at that meeting, and it's,
I think they were loosened up by the afternoon. If you came back, some of that nervousness was gone.
They were pretty quiet when I was there, but to see the excitement on some of them's face and the nervousness, it was, and you know, I thought it was 200, but you told me it was 90. It just looked, I knew it was a lot. I was going, wow, do we have that many new teachers? That's amazing. So again, that was a nice training for them, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. Lassane. We'll move to the minutes. Board members, are there any questions about the minutes? We've got July 10, 2 sets, and July 19. Any comments or questions? The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, including minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, including the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We have no recognitions this month, and I'm sure we'll start back up with that next month. We'll move into our non-consent agenda. Mr. Ribbick, Title I plan.
Good evening, Mr. Page, members of the board, Mr. Johnson. I'm here tonight seeking your approval for our this year's Title I plan. And just to review a couple of the parts of our plan, we are receiving $4,681,307 this year, and that is up $531,424 from the previous year. And you can see the list of schools on your report. And with these funds, we are looking at funding 39 teachers and 32 teacher assistants. And the majority of the funds do go to the schools for allotments, for positions, and for supplies. And then you also have attached the assurances that need to be signed, and they were signed by Mr. Johnson. And I'll answer any questions that you may have about our plan.
We don't have to share any of that money with charter schools, do
We do.
We have to offer it to them,
Right.
but they would have to meet the same regulations for Title I that our Title I schools do, but we do have to offer it to them every year, and
Right.
they always decline.
Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions of Mr. Ribbitt? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to approve Title I plan.
Second.
I have a motion second to approve Title I plan. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Plan carries. Thank you, Mr. Ribbitt.
Thank you.
Architectural recommendations for new middle schools, Mr. Rob Jackson.
Good evening, Mr. Page, members of the board, Mr. Johnson. Before you have a list of architects that have submitted an RFQ. We had 14 of them. We went through the IPS, or the Interactive Purchasing System, through the state. We had 14 architectural firms that submitted a very detailed and rigorous request for information guideline. The architectural firm that has stood out the most from their qualifications and their past experience is Mosley Architects. You have a list of the schools that they have already designed and helped build. All of them have come in on time and under budget, and I would like to recommend the approval for hiring Mosley Architects for the design of the 2 new middle schools. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions, board members? We discussed this in depth at the committee of the whole meeting, so I believe probably most of our questions were asked at that time. The chair would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. We take Mr. Jackson's approval for Mosley Architects.
I have a motion second to approve architectural recommendations for the new middle schools. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks,
Mr.
sir.
Jackson. We are not, C has been marked off the agenda, so we will move now to D, which is primetime program at Union Grove Elementary School. Mr. Armstrong.
Mr. Page, members of the board, Mr. Johnson, this summer we have received several requests from parents for a primetime program at Union Grove Elementary, and on July 20th, Mr. Johnson and I went up to the school and met with the principal, and we had about 9 parents there. In a good faith effort, those parents did fill out an application and paid for the application fee, but they were requesting that the program, primetime program, be restored at Union Grove. We've also had a grandparent that has pledged a $10,000, a one-time $10,000 pledge to help get this program started again. And we also have $30,000 in fund balance for prime time. And we feel very confident that we could keep, the program in place for this year, with the expectation that they would get the numbers up from 9 to make the program sustainable. And that number is about 22.4.
Mr. Armstrong, you did say there are no other after-school care anywhere in that area?
There's 0. There are no other after-school programs in the Union Grove area. That is correct. That's the one reason. And over the last several years, Union Grove have lost students to other elementary schools in the area that have primetime programs. They've lost, I'm not for sure, but I've probably about 6 or 7 students that have left Union Grove to go to Central or Harmony because they do have thriving programs there. And Union Grove is the only elementary school without a primetime program in the afternoon.
Mr. Armstrong, in 2014, December 2014, what was the reason that the board dissolved or discontinued the prime time at Union Grove and then MB Mills prime time morning?
Not having the proper numbers to sustain the program. It didn't see any way. We gave them an opportunity to try to sustain the program or to grow. We extended that deadline a few months, I believe, but it still didn't. They still didn't get the numbers. But that's why both of those programs came to an end, because they didn't have the numbers to break even.
And you said that Union Grove was losing some students to prime time to Central and Harmony.
Right, just losing them as a student. Yeah.
Are we providing transportation?
No, I mean, actually they left the school completely to become students at Harmony and Central.
Okay. Well, I went back to the primetime enrollment 2015-2016. That was the year after Union Grove was discontinued. And Harmony had 19 at that time. This past year, we just ended in June, was up to 33.
Yes.
I think we're just, if the board agrees to do that, I think we're just kicking the can down the road, because it's not sustainable. We've proved it's not sustainable. And not only will I predict Union Grove won't be sustainable, but Harmony may go under that 22 threshold. This makes no logic to me, financially, fiscally. I had asked you last week, had the administration considered maybe waiving the criteria for the Union Grove instead of letting them have to abide by the prime time rules?
And
could
I
they
did,
be a
yes.
separate?
Right. I did check with Mr. Linebarger on that question, and that is a possibility. That would be a possibility.
And would their rates go down so parents?
The reason you want the ratings where they are is to get the.
I mean weekly rates, not ratings, but
yeah, the ratings.
Cost.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would affect the cost, but a lot of those families that we met that night on July 20th, I felt like if it was another time, we'd have had more parents there that night. But I'm not sure about the rates, but it's funding for scholarships and those type things are affected by the star rating. If you're not really dependent on those funds, then Mr. Linebarger said it is a possibility to go ahead and lower that standard. It would be fine if that was the decision of the board.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was going to say the only reason I'm in support of it is I feel like the parents in Union Grove, even though it's a smaller school, those kids are just as important as the kids in the big schools. And with all the other elementary schools having it, I was one who voted to cut the money back in 2014, or just cut the program because we didn't have sustain. But now that when you look across the board and the others are still operating where they are, I think with this grant and some support that's there, they're trying to build a coalition of people to get kids back in there. So I don't know if they'll meet that. I hope they do. But I'm being realistic with you also that we'll have to reevaluate a year from now. But I'd like to think we support these kids and parents because the difference in the money is not very much, but I think it's a difference in the support of the kids. And so that's the reason I think I'm a little biased because it's in my district, but I think it's a good school, and I think those parents deserve prime time just like everybody else. And hopefully we can sustain it.
Mr. Johnson told me something recently, and it's stuck in my head a bunch, that are we a system of schools or are we a school system? I, too, voted to close it at Union Grove. I think we've got an opportunity with a $10,000 grant that we do give it a shot. I don't know if it'll make it or not, but doggone it, I agree. Those kids are important, and that's the only school we don't have it at, and I think it's very unfortunate, and it's one of our poorest schools. I'm willing, let's give it a shot, but that's just my opinion.
Can I ask also, is there another effort to market the program to
Absolutely.
the parents?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a
rejuvenated.
great question. One of the things they're doing right now, I know that Mr. Linebarger is even starting to work with Ms. James now to market, be very aggressive in that area to get students there. I feel like after school starts, some parents are just waiting to see what happens because they didn't want to make a commitment. Then we tell them 2 or 3 months down the road the program's going to shut down for the school year. And so basically I feel like some parents are waiting to see what direction we take, and if we make a commitment for at least this school year to give them an opportunity to grow their numbers, then they will. They feel like prime time is a real bargain. And so those parents, they were calling other parents that night who weren't there, writing checks for other parents. That's the kind of commitment they made that night. That's how very much they wanted the program in that area.
And how many did you have paid?
9. And there were only probably 6 or 7 parents there, you would say, Mr. Johnson. But they were on the phone. It reminded me like a telethon.
What?
A telethon.
One other comment I would like to say, as long as we've got 8 or 9 or whatever, I want us to have 2 people there. I don't. It's just too many issues with just one person, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's to discuss a different day. Any other discussion?
Mr. James, are you going to vote on this since your wife is the principal there?
Well, she doesn't get paid any more money if there's prime time there or not. So monetarily, it doesn't make a difference. But it does make a difference to me as representing the citizens up there. They'd want to see me vote for it, especially since I was the one who voted to cut it out, and I had to explain to them. So I'd be more than glad to vote for it again, especially with this grant that's in there. I wasn't necessarily going to make the motion unless nobody else made it on this board, but I will make the motion and let it die under me if I have to. But it's not because of my wife's the principal.
Mr. Kuchedi, do you see any legal problem with that?
No, if there's no financial benefit to him or his family, then I think he's free to vote on that. But I think it's duly noted. I mean, it's not bad to note that the relationship that's there.
Yeah.
I agree. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we vote for the primetime program at Union Grove Elementary School. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the operation of the primetime program at Union Grove. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
No.
Very good. It passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have a second reading of policy 7930. Dr. Lassane.
Okay. Hello again. Policy Code 7930, which involves professional employees' demotion and dismissal, has been available for review for 30 days, and we are asking for a vote on this one tonight. The revisions that are strongly recommended by the School Boards Association for this policy are related to the addition of the Statement of Performance Standards, as well as other expectations for professional employees. It also just updates the cross-references for this policy. I will remind you again, per our discussion last month, the recommended changes from the School Boards Association are only to the professional employee policy. Remember that there is a sister policy that also deals with classified employees. Are there any questions regarding this policy?
Dr. Lassane, Mr. Chairman, board members, I took the time and did some research on this, and of course, your proposal is the board expects all professional licensed employees, whether employed pursuant to a contract or through continuing career status, to exemplify above average performance in carrying out their teaching or other professional responsibilities. I always thought that was open for conjecture. Who decides, because it's not specific. And anyway, I didn't like that. You know, I said last month or the month before that I thought we had too many board policies, and it was... Anyway, it's we've got two. You mentioned in that 1610 and 7800. Did you know they were almost identical word to word?
There are lots. You will find that in a study of policy, particularly when it's related to things that may be in, I don't know which portions you're talking about off top.
They're almost identical.
But you're going to find that in policy, particularly if it's referencing specific language from general statutes or whatever the case may be.
Okay. Well, I was perplexed to see that we had professional development assistants, and it said the same thing. And I was wondering if that was necessary, by law or something, and I didn't know. My ignorance, I had no idea whether that was by state law or we had to have those two like that.
I think if you look in the references and the cross-references, you will find connections to the different types of employment when you're talking an at-will classified employee versus a professional employee. Even the mention of the contract when you're talking professional employees is going to be totally different because you would never be mentioning contract when referencing at-will employees.
Well, then I looked up policy 7811, which...
Can you give me the title of that policy?
Ma'am?
Can you give me the title of that policy, please?
Plans for Growth and Improvement of Licensed Employees. And it was mentioned in this proposed policy. So I'll go down to paragraph B, which is the one that stumped me. It says, teachers who receive an overall rating of at least proficient on all standards on the North Carolina Educator Evaluation System rubric as indicated on the summary rating form shall develop an individual growth plan designed to improve performance on specifically identified standards and elements. Now, we got a teacher that a principal says, you're proficient, you're doing a good job. You're not doing an excellent job, but you're doing a good job. But this teacher has to have their own personal plan to satisfy this board policy. And so who decides whether they have one or not?
Well, general statute decides that. And so one of the pieces that may be helpful is for you to sit down an individual growth plan. Every teacher has an individual growth plan. And then within those growth plans, they are differentiated. So if it's one that there's more concerns about, then that's a monitored growth plan.
Right.
And then there's a directed growth plan. But by policy, every teacher has a growth plan. That's their we used to call them professional development plans.
Right.
It's the same thing as a professional development plan.
Well, my only issue with this is who's checking to make sure they do that?
It's in our tracking system. We call it NESIS.
Yes.
You know, we have tons of acronyms. You cannot go all the way through that system without the individual growth plan is there. It has to be checked off.
Right.
You have to have your checks during the year, and it has to be closed out at the end of the year.
Right. So they go in their computer and they type in their growth plan. And after they do that, the computer allows them to continue on.
Well, they have to meet with the principal, and both the principal and the teacher have to sign off on that plan.
Okay. But it does say individual, so it's not the same thing as if they... What I'm getting at... We're about to vote on a budget, and we're going to probably end up cutting out 0.25% supplement increase, which I'm going to vote against when it comes up. But we're asking our teachers to be above average, and we ain't paying them. That's my whole issue, and it doesn't have a thing to do with you. But I got a problem. I think we've got too many board policies, and I think there's a lot of people that don't have a clue what all of them say, and that's me. Only thing I want to know is, if somebody breaks a board policy, who ensures that they're going to get on the right track?
You have to realize that when you're talking these individual growth plans and all of that, that whole system is connected to that person's licensure.
Right.
So ultimately, depending on where they are, you know, it could be a little different if they're on a one-year contract versus career and that sort of thing without being too technical. But if you can't check off all of that, we have reporting that we have to send to DPI, and that's connected to your licensure.
Right.
And so that's a huge carrot for making sure that all of these provisions are followed.
So when everything's sort of settled down a little bit, I can come by your office and
Absolutely.
You will show me that so I can see exactly what the teachers have to do today.
I think if you see it, that will help
Right.
a little more with
Well,
that.
what
I'm not going to
puzzles-
say you're going to agree with it, but I
Right.
think it would go a long way in helping understand the structure.
But the way this sounds to me is that we're asking more of our teachers than we're paying them less, and I got a problem with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. And we have always demanded more of our teachers and paid them less. So you are a teacher like I was, and I think that's one of the things that hurt morale so much is all the hoops we have to jump through. But when Raleigh tells you have to jump through the hoops, we have to jump through the hoops. I think that's some of the issues that we have with the unfunded mandates that we get down from Raleigh. And, we pay our membership to the School Board Association, and let's face it, they're a bunch of lawyers and our legislators. And when they get writing stuff, I agree. It's impossible to keep up with what we're doing. We depend on those lawyers to tell us what we have to do, and that's why, it is shocking how many policies we have. It's a notebook that thick. I, too, wish there was a better way, but sometimes we're just hung into what we have to live with. Any other discussion on policy 7930? Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I make the motion to approve policy number 7930.
I have a motion and a second to approve policy 7930, professional employees demotion and dismissal. This is any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have two policies for first reading. We went over these somewhat at the committee of the whole meeting. Ms. Weiberg, you've got policy 3640/5130 and policy
Right.
5008.
That's right. This is the first reading, and the policy 3640/5130 is student voter registration and pre-registration. They're taking some wording back to the way it was, I think, in 2013. And And the second policy, 5008, is the automated phone and text messaging, which we talked about last Monday night. We are in full compliance with the requirements of the Telecommunications Act.
Any questions?
Chairman, I took the time to look up the law that you quote that covers this particular policy. And it says, and I'll read it to you, to encourage student voter registration, local boards of education are encouraged to adopt policies to promote student registration. These policies may include collaboration with county boards of election to conduct voter registrations in high schools. Completion and submission of voter registration forms are not to be course requirements or grade assignments for students. Now, I personally think that we can satisfy this law by providing voter registration forms in guidance departments, letting students know they're there. If we have to, we have I think every school has a notary, who can verify a signature, and we can send those into the board of the voting board if they want us to. Now, my whole issue with what was written was I don't think that we should ask teachers put additional duties on them. It's not the teacher's responsibility to sign up students. Now, of course, in coursework, we're going to talk about being good citizens and voting and all that. But I think it's better for us as a school system to stay away from trying to get involved in politics, because it is a big deal with certain people. And I don't want to bring the wrath of parents down on principals or teachers because they're trying to register their students. So I would encourage the board to change the language of this first one, and we can satisfy that law in the way that I have described. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I also agree with Mr. Howe. Reading over that policy, I think it's we could ask the superintendent to put it in the principal's offices and have it distributed from there, or the guidance council offices. It could literally be an unmanned offer person, man, it could just be a request for the form. I think it's in the existing what verbiage that you have in this policy. The first paragraph is okay, because that's really not, that's just saying we support, which we do. We support democracy, we support the Board of Education, and we want to, for kids that are 16 over, like it says. We just need to redo that next paragraph or the next two to match something that's a little more simplified that goes to the guidance officer. That. So I'm in support of Mr. Howe.
This is a first reading. We will not be voting on this tonight. Perhaps Ms. Weiberg and Mr. Johnson, could we have a committee maybe to look at this?
Yes, sir. We'll be glad to assemble a group and look at that second paragraph and rewrite that according to the discussion you've held tonight. Bring it back to you next month.
I would like to appoint Mr. Howe. Mr. James is to represent the board on that. If you could set that up, and then check with Mr. Coutey on the legality of it once you get done, and maybe run it by the School Board Association.
Yes, sir. We can do that.
Okay, I'll depend on you, sir, to and Ms. Weiberg, if y'all can get together and figure out when you could get a few minutes of time, or however y'all would like to do that. Yes, sir. Very good. And then we'll have.
Can I add something, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Please. I called Ms. Gallagher from the Board of Elections, and she basically, because the general statute added pre-registration, that's basically what we're looking at, is the word pre-registration to align with our general statute, our law. They're excited. They would love to work with the school district. I know Ms. Weiberg said that they were going to put together a PowerPoint and help with the principals, maybe collaborate when the civics lesson was around voting. But I would hope we would include our Iredell County Board of Elections, and she even said she would be happy to come to our next month Committee of the Whole if we wanted her to, just to, as a voice of support. But you need to let me know so I can have her put it on her calendar.
I think it would be great if she was involved in that.
Committee. I'd love for her to be on that committee.
Absolutely.
I didn't say anything about it.
She's always been a wonderful resource.
She's great, or
yeah,
she
she's
really
great.
is great. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's anything. I mean, we want to do our part in making sure kids are registered to vote. There's no doubt about that. I totally understand that we don't want to put it on the teachers' backs. This needs to be, now you've got civics teachers and all that are going to talk about it, and that's what we need to do. But I understand when we talk about having a committee of high school teachers and blah, blah, blah. Teachers have enough to do. Now, and I'm sure there's some teachers that will want to take part in it, and that's great. I think the board wants to be careful in not putting additional non-teaching duties on our teachers. I think that's the main concern. It is. So I think this is just a doable situation to reword it Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
You'll take care of that?
Yes, sir, we will.
Very good. Is the board in approval of that? Anybody? Does anybody object to that? If not, then we'll move on. Do we have any discussion on further discussion on that policy or on 5008?
Just a quick question about the automated phone, and maybe we touched on that last week. I just couldn't remember, and I didn't write a note. If someone has been placed on a if they have placed themselves on a do not call registry, are we bound by those rules?
When they register their students at school, by filling in the telephone number and the email, they are thereby giving us permission.
Okay.
Now, there is the opportunity in two places for them to opt out of getting them, but it is my understanding that the do not call list does not extend. Once they fill out the form to register their student in school, that's permission.
All right. That answers my question. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Ms. Weiberg.
You're welcome.
We'll now move to agenda item G, budget resolution. Ms. White.
Good evening. We talked about the budget at yesterday's end-of-year review work session with the board. The board asked that I bring the budget resolution to you tonight, so that was placed at your table by Ms. McCarraher. The budget the total budget right now, when you're going to pass it, is $179 million. It'll go up as the year goes on. It does call to use $1,753,000 in local current expense fund balance and $415,000 in other special revenue fund balance. Just a couple of budgetary highlights. The state funding has increased by $3.8 million, mainly for employee raises and benefit cost increases. Our appropriations from Iredell County are up $1.3 million, or $46 per student in the local current expense fund. And the capital outlay appropriations from Iredell County are up about $2.7 million, or 49% over the previous year. That has been, our capital outlay appropriation from the county has been reduced by $1.4 million. We have asked them to set aside that money for future years' technology needs. That's something they've been doing for a number of years now. I will be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, comments, board members?
Mr. Chairman, we're going to vote on this tonight, correct?
Yes.
I have a point of order, and I'm going to ask council, since we have already voted for certain aspects that we talked about yesterday, such as the supplement increase, and yesterday we decided to take that out, but it has already been voted in. Do we need to vote and have a vote to cancel our first vote?
How was it voted in? The budget, the entire budget has not been approved yet. Is that correct?
I made it perfectly clear, I believe, twice at the end of that meeting that this was our we approved a proposal that this was what we were telling our system to make their final budget around. I hope I made it clear that was not approval of a budget. At the time, we didn't have any knowledge of what the state was going to do. We had called that budget meeting because there was a lot of employees that we had to make decisions on whether we were going to fund or not. And we needed to do that. It'd be a shame if we were sitting here today having to make those decisions. The board members speak up. I mean, whatever y'all say.
But I guess my question was, the budget hadn't been approved, so none of its component parts have been approved yet. Is that correct? Yeah, I would say that unless you have made an agreement with someone already, an individual or a group of individuals about compensation or about a product or something like that, then it's still open. I mean, the budget's entirely open. You could start all over again and from scratch if you decided to do so.
Because what I recall, when we, I was on the phone the whole time, trying to listen to everything, but what I recall was that it was said over and over again, we do not have our state numbers, so this is not a final budget. This is a wish list of things we'd like to do, but this is not a final budget.
If anything, we authorize the administration to use $1.4 million in fund balance for the items that the board was approving, but they're coming back with 1.7 something due to the fact that the state budgets come in and we're having to meet other obligations that we have to meet due to the state budget. I'm not happy with this budget one bit. I wasn't happy with our recommendation of using 1.4 out of fund balance back in May. It was a 4-3 vote. I don't mind telling you I voted against that. We still haven't started school. Now, in 2 out of the last 3 years, we've had to hire additional teachers. 1 year, over $1 million worth of additional teachers after school started. So, folks, we made, I think, a gallant effort to try to maintain some of our non-teaching positions. And unfortunately, we're looking now at having to suffer from that decision. It's not, this is not a great budget, but I'm afraid from the efforts we made in May to in good faith tell people we were going to fund those positions, and the board approved it, and we have to stand by that. I stand by that, whether I agree with it or not. We said we were going to do those positions. The supplement, we told them we were going to try to do that, and we could go back legally and cut those positions because we've never approved them. We could go back and cut $1 million out if we had to legally. If we cut, matter of fact, we're removing. Is there 6 positions? We're
6.5
teachers. 6.5 teachers we're cutting, not to count the 12 EC teachers that we cut.
Right.
So that's 18. We cut 18.5 teachers. We cut 2 IT positions. We're cutting 2 bliffs. Doggone it, that hurts.
Maintenance.
Well,
Maintenance, we told them we were going to hire 2, now we're not. But we don't have the money. So what do we do? And I think we're going to look at this budget as it was somewhat discussed yesterday. I think it comes up, do we vote on it? We'll vote on it tonight and we'll see where we go. If we vote it down, then we'll rehash it.
Well, here, what the public hears is, we are getting more in state money this year. Why are we still having to cut positions? Can you explain that? I mean, I know, and this board knows, but just for the public's sake, can you explain it to them why we still have to cut positions?
Well, our state budget doesn't correlate to the local budget. We have a handful of local positions that are paid with the local current expense fund, money that comes from the county, not the state. If the state gives a raise, we match that raise to our local paid employees. There are a number of reasons for that. Mainly is the local employees, it's not their fault that I choose to pay them with local money versus state money. And at any point in time, they could be moved during the year between local and state to some extent.
Some of those employees are teachers.
Some of them are teachers. Yeah. There's a lot of classified employees that are paid with the local fund. All your maintenance staff is paid with local money. There are a lot of instructional support positions, a lot of office support, custodians. There are a good number of employees that are paid with local funds. And then we've always supported, we've always employed additional positions beyond what the state budget supports, whether it be assistant principals or instructional support positions, office support, all across the gamut. So those are the reasons why more state money does not necessarily correlate to an easier local budget.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would I'm in agreement with you in the fact that I still think we're several $100,000 over where we need to be to have any kind of protection and padding that's there. But with that said, we did give the charge to staff to come back to us with a realistic budget that would be at the top of where we were using local funds that we felt our fund balance, using anything there. And that's what they prepared for us tonight to put out here. And I think we are going to have a series of budget amendments and other things that are going to happen over the course of the next few months. But I'd like to make a motion that we accept this budget as presented for the 2017-2018 year.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We approve the budget as presented. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, when I ran for office, I told teachers, teacher assistants, custodians, coaches that I would try to get their supplements back where they were in 2008. And we aren't there yet. I have failed to do that. I thought maybe we'd be able to chip away at it, but we were unable to. So that's my whole thing. I thought the supplement of 0.25 is a very small amount for what was taken away in 2009. Thank you.
And that's the difference between being a candidate and being an actual elected official. That's the hard knocks.
Well, I also ran a lot on the same, and we did finally give the coaches the first raises in 5 years. We give our classified employees a new pay schedule that gives them raises every 3 or 4 or 5 years. We give them a 2.5% raise. And up till this year, we've been able to either in the last 2 years put money back in the bank at the end of the year, or at this year. And Ms. White, thank you very much. You worked hard on on squeezing blood from the turnip, and it appears that we will pretty near break even in this past year. It looks like maybe a $20,000. We had thought we were going to use several $100,000 in fund balance, and we're going to come out good on that. As I said, personally, I don't like this budget, but I think it's where we're at. When the board approved giving over $1 million, hiring over $1 million of non-instructional people, then that we knew at that time, and I understand that the principals wanted that, and we've approved it. So we approved it, and now we've got to maybe cut some other things, and that's a shame, but it's the nature of the beast. I don't think any of us are happy with this budget, but I think it's probably what we're going to have to do. So that said, board members.
Ms. White, as this is a yes or no, as the chief financial officer, do you consider this budget fiscally responsible?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor of this budget? Aye? Aye. Opposed? No.
No.
Thank you, Ms. White. Oh, now we go to H, Harmony School. Do I have a...
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say at the request of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners, I move that we contribute $25,000 to the town of Harmony to assist with the repairs to the stormwater system, which is near the school, and these funds will be distributed from the capital fund. That's my motion.
I have a motion to, as requested by the county commissioners, to contribute $25,000 to the town of Harmony to assist with the stormwater systems repairs in the area of our school there. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion?
We got a report on this, if board members remember, that Dr. Miller said that during construction that engineers, we had to pay them, and every law was followed. We followed the engineer's plan, and it's unfortunate this situation happened, but that happened 10 years ago. And, I don't feel like that. I know legally, because we've already got counsel to tell us that we aren't required. So I'm going to side with Dr. Miller and Mr. Jackson and say we did everything we were supposed to do, and it's unfortunate this happened.
I don't think anybody's questioned that we've done anything wrong. This is simply, and we were asked by the county commissioners, they were going to help the city of Harmony. The issues are around one of our schools. There's no comment here of anything being done wrong at all.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to say, as the person making the motion, the only reason that I'm backing it is for the relationship we have with the county. If they're matching $25,000, they're asking us to do the same with our partner, the school, the town of Harmony, and our school's right in the middle of this. I feel like it's an endorsement for the majority of the county to fix this. So that's the only reason. There's not an admit of any type of problem, but sometimes some systems are not sufficiently designed because they didn't have access to look at what they were doing. So that's the reason I'm in support of it, only for hence the pun, harmony of the system.
Harmony of the Harmony system, huh? Yeah, there's no, we've not done anything wrong. We're just looking at, again.
Well, I think we can add to what Mr. James says in reference to the fact that in the times that we just voted on a budget that I don't think anybody liked, everybody here could add something to that budget, probably maybe take away something, but they could add something to the budget and come up with a larger figure. So to make this matching fund thing with the county commissioners, we are being really, really nice at this time.
How nice?
And that's a good thing to do. I mean, it's a good thing to do, but it's also funds. So all that being said, that's where we are in reference to the Harmony.
Well, I would like to make this perfectly clear. It's not the same funds we just voted on. And that's the one thing I think was the hardest thing for people to understand is how the school system works. We're actually going to use capital funds, which are given to us by the county. So it's not from our current expense money. So when we sit here, it's just really hard for everybody to understand it. So it's not coming from the budget, the county, the local budget. So I want to make sure people understand it. We are bringing that from our capital fund, which this year did have a several $1 million increase. So making that clear, it's coming from capital funds.
And also, construction usually comes in under budget, correct, Mr. Jackson? And we keep taking everything out of capital from Dr. Miller. So, the money that Rob saves us and puts into capital, thank you, Rob and Dr. Miller. So where it comes out of capital or construction, whichever one, we're very frugal with our money on that construction end of it. So,
which is all true. Just as another comment, which is all true, but the source of capital, local funds is same pot.
Like the bonds.
I mean, if you go high enough, it comes from the same pot. So we're adding to, we're taking away from that same pot, adding back to it to do something that is really good.
Good faith, good faith. How'd you say really, really?
Sorry?
It's really, really, really?
Really, really.
Really?
How good is it? Okay. Any other comments?
Call question.
All in favor of the Harmony School donation? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? No. Very good. Dr. Miller, do we have any sign-ups for public comments? It's going to be hard for him to comment then, isn't it? Vincent, is that Broom? Brown. Vincent Brown. Vincent Brown.
Here you hear it come 3 times.
3 times. And Vincent Brown, one more time. Is Mr. Brown here? He's not here. We'll move on. Public comment section is now closed. Board member comments. Board members, any comments for tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. We spent yesterday several hours looking at budget and many other things. I had made this statement earlier this year. We have a board policy, it's policy number 5030, which is community use of facilities. And there's one under category 4. It says that the superintendent's annually will submit the amount or method of calculating fees to be charged in accordance with fee structure to the board for approval. I thought we'd get it respectfully, Mr. Johnson, yesterday, but we didn't. And I was wondering if that's forthcoming.
Yes, sir. We'll be happy to furnish that for you. Will the Cal meeting in September be?
Fine with me.
Yes, sir.
The only other board comment I want to make is I do appreciate the county commissioners coming up with more money. I mean, obviously, I'd like to see a little more money, but I do want to thank them for making the effort and listening to our current administration and others, and bringing both of those funds up a little bit more per pupil, a little bit more for capital, working with us on our technology and that. So they do need thanks for that because they've done a good job of there. I hope they do a little more job. Hope we're always asking them to help us out a little more and make it a little better for our students. But they definitely need to be congratulated on helping us out.
I would just like to say it's always interesting when school starts. It's neat to go around to the schools, especially the elementary schools, especially kindergartners. But I really and truly, I guess because being a teacher, and some of us have been teachers, the first of school is like a new beginning. And it's coming very fast on us. I wish it was faster so we had a different calendar. I'm looking forward to a good year. We had a great year last year, Mr. Johnson. We're doing a lot of good things this year. We're opening a couple of choice programs. I'm really thrilled about our early agriculture program up at Early College at North, and also opening the agriculture middle school program, as well as our STEM middle school programs all over the district. It's exciting. We've got a lot of things going on. And it is tough up here making decisions on money and people's jobs and that sort of thing. And as I think Max said, if you think it's easy, come up here and try to do it. We don't. The board doesn't always agree, but one thing I'll say about all our board members is all of them have the children in mind, and that's what it's all. Sometimes we get really disgusted because it seems like we have to deal about adult things all the time. And then I invite all the board members to visit their schools and see the excitement of a new year. Thank you. Any other board comments?
Just a moment there. I meant to bring a copy, but in the day's record and landmark, anybody reads Out of Our Past, 25 years, 50 years, 75 years for Charles, and but 25 years ago in today's paper, and I meant to make a copy, it said Out of Our Past, August 11th, teachers, August 17th, students were coming back to school, and around 13, almost 14,000 students, which would have been 1992. So we've grown quite a bit since then. So that was in our paper today.
I believe it was that the first.
Started are interesting too. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The teachers were coming back August 11th, 17th, the start of school, and over almost 14,000 students, which was 25 years ago.
Was that the first year of merger? Is that correct?
92.
Yeah, I thought.
Just a point of.
All right, Mr. Johnson, if there's no more board comments, your comment time.
All right, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, board members. I have an introduction I'd like to start off with. So Mr. Hans Lasser is with us tonight, and Mr. Lasser, we generally ask you to stand up so everybody can give you a good going over. So tonight we are very excited to introduce Hans Lasseter. You approved him last week at your CAL meeting as the new principal at Statesville High School. Mr. Lasseter comes to us from Greensboro. Just a little bit about his background. Mr. Lasseter is a graduate of North Carolina A&T University, where he received his Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science in 1989. He furthered his education at North Carolina Central University with a Master's of Arts in History in 2000. He's also a graduate of the of North Carolina State University, where he received his Master's in School Administration in 2002. He's also gone on there at NC State to earn his Education Specialist degree in 2013. He is currently a doctoral student there at NC State, and he anticipates being finished with that work in May of 2018. But if that dissertation gets delayed, we will certainly understand why with the start of your new job.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lasseter began his career in education as a classroom teacher. He has worked in the Durham Public Schools, Guilford County Schools, had a stint at the Community College in Vance and Granville. He has also been a high school principal. Probably his most noted tenure as a high school principal came, and I think this is a real point of pride for him as well, when he was principal of Hillside High School in Durham. He was principal there for 4 years, and when he arrived in 2008-2009, the EOG composite score for that school was 45.2%. When he finished his tenure there and left, that score had increased to 66.4%. Unprecedented growth. The graduation rate when he arrived there was 52.4%. When he exited, it had risen to 75%. Again, those numbers are hard to achieve. Very impressive. In addition to his principalships, he has served as Executive Director and Chief Administrative Office for the Northampton Public Schools, where he even had a stint as the Public Information Officer. He has also worked in Washington County as the Chief Human Resources Officer and Public Information Officer, and he has been self-employed as an educational consultant. So please welcome Hans Lasseter to our community and wish him well in his leadership of Statesville High School.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Lasseter.
Thank you very much, sir. Am I expected to make a few words?
Sure. Well, since you're at that microphone, feel free.
Well, Chairman Page and members of the board, and of course, Mr. Johnson, thank you so much for your vote of confidence in bringing me to this school system. And I do want to also thank the community for your belief and trust in what we will do at Statesville High School. And when I was selected, I gave the Almighty Creator thanks for this opportunity, because it represents, just as Mr. Johnson and I spoke in my interview, a chance to restart. And Statesville High School, as you know, has adopted a restart model as we begin to transform the way that business is done at Statesville High School. And in very, very short time, we will meet with our curriculum specialists, both in-house and with the district, to begin to slowly and gradually restructure some things. And we do want to let you know, as a board, that you are invited anytime into our school. The door is always open. My door is always open. And what we will do the first day of school, as I promised in my interview, is we will have a gathering. And at that gathering, I will stand in the gym and speak to all of our students. And at that gathering, we will articulate what our expectations are of every student at Statesville High School: academic, behavioral, social, and just their general movements in and out of our building. And we, in front of your eyes and in front of the eyes of our community, will grow that school. And we've already begun. I was a little tardy this evening because we were out at our soccer game. We were at the football practice. We were at band practice. We were at dance practice. We even supervised the dismissal of Crossroads Early College to get those students from the classrooms to the buses, because we believe it's important to create, forge, and foster positive relationships with every student in that building. And I assure you, and I very rarely make assurances, but I assure you that by the end of this academic semester, we will know every student in that building by first and last name and be able to establish a positive relationship and connection with every child in that school. And as you know, sitting as an august body, the key to success in some regards is the establishment of good working relationships with every child in that building. There's an adage and a cliche, if you will. Those students don't care how much you know until they know that you care. And that's what we live by at Statesville High School. So thank you again for your vote of confidence, and it's time for us to show and prove. Thank you.
A few other quick comments, board members. We have, of course, started the school year. We started actually last Monday with the return of our students to our early colleges. And you've heard a report last week from the newest early college, the Agriculture and Science Early College at North Iredell High School, which, by the way, is the first school of its kind in North Carolina. So we're very, very proud of that. But our other students are anticipating returning to school very, very soon, and so we've been very busy knowing that those students are just a few days away from coming back. We did have our Leadership Academy week last week, where we called in all of our principals, assistant principals, and instructional facilitators, as well as our department heads. And I'd like to just kind of highlight some of the things that we talked about last week as we kicked off the school year. We did tell them that we've got some very, very important decisions that are coming up this school year. The Board of Education is going to be considering the refresh of our technology initiative, and you'll probably be voting on that in November. So that's a huge decision. We also, as was evident tonight in the discussion about our budget, we really struggle with our budget. But you know, we remind ourselves that out of the 115 school systems in North Carolina last year, we were funded at 1/15. We did better than that locally, but when we consider all sources of budgeting, nobody does it cheaper than Iredell-Statesville schools. We want to work to change that too. Mr. Howell, I commend your efforts and your vote tonight on standing up for that supplement. 2009 was a tough year for us. We laid off hundreds of employees that year, and we did reduce our supplement rather than lay off more people. And we want very, very hard to make sure that that supplement is restored. And I think the only way we're going to do that is to identify a funding stream. So for many years in our community, we've talked about the quarter-cent sales tax. It is a strategy that's used in other communities to help support their schools. I think we are reaching a point in our community now with our leaders that there may be some serious discussion about that option being put before the voters in a year. And so I hope that we can work together and make that a reality, not only for us, but Mooresville-Graded and Mitchell Community College as well. The Facilities Task Force is meeting. I think there's a meeting tomorrow night. It's very exciting to know that work is moving forward, that there is discussion about the possibility of a new high school in our community sometime in the future. We've also, I want to commend Dr. Miller and Rob Jackson for identifying many needed projects throughout all of our schools. And so I think the report that you're going to be receiving later this fall from the Facilities Task Force is going to outline some much needed work in every one of our 5 attendance zones so that every community receives something from that. And it will be work that I think we can take to the community and get a lot of support for a possible bond referendum sometime in the future. We also talked about last week our market share, and we're very, very proud of the fact that we do have a lot of great choice options for our parents. and that we've got 36 great schools, premier choice options for our parents. And I told a parent the other day on the telephone, she was looking for an elementary school, and I told her, I said, we got 17 choices. And she said, I never thought about it that way. But we did remind everybody that we do have 5 charter schools in our community. We have 14 private schools and over 2,000 home schools. And so we do have a lot of competition, and that keeps us on our toes, and it makes us bring forward the best. And so we have asked all of our schools this year to make sure that they're focusing on customer requirements, that they're treating parents and students as clients and customers. And I think they do a good job of that, but we're going to buckle down this year and do even more with that. We did emphasize to our leaders last week in the district that we are a school system and not a system of schools. And Mr. Page, thank you for mentioning that tonight. It's something that we're going to take serious this year. We do very much encourage our principals to be innovative and be creative, and we share a lot of decision making with them. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like the McDonald's franchise. There's certain non-negotiables that if you're going to run a McDonald's franchise, you have to serve a certain type of food. And so we're going to work on that this year and just kind of tighten up on some of that. We did ask each of our principals to focus on a couple things coming up in the 2017-18 school year, and they include, we want to make sure that in every one of our classrooms that we've got good, solid lesson designs, good lesson plans, and that those lesson plans are aligned to the curriculum. Students can't be expected to perform well on standardized tests and get good results for our district unless we're assuring that we're teaching the right curriculum and that curriculum is delivered in a good, sound lesson design. We also are focusing on core instruction. Yesterday at our end-of-year review, we admitted that one of our OFIs is that last year we had a lot of teachers that did not make their growth goal last year. We want to embrace those teachers this year and support them and help them crack the code on what it takes to get growth out of every single student in our district. We want to, a third area that we're going to focus on this year is making sure that our evaluations of all of our staff members are authentic and that we are giving good coaching and support to each of our employees. We also are going to be rolling out a plan this year to have an advocate for every child in our school system. And so we look forward to bringing that to you later in the fall, and along with some ideas of making sure that every adult in this district is available to a child as an advocate to support that child in their education. We're also going to this year focus on our brand as a school system. And one of the documents that was in your material yesterday, and I'll pass it out again tonight, and there's copies out on the front desk here. We call this kind of a little brag sheet, but if you take time to read that, there are some remarkable accomplishments on that sheet of paper. And as we continue to work on our brand, we want our brand to be excellence. We want our brand to be that we provide the premier option for public education in this county. We're also going to work on our community relations and bringing more partnerships and strengthening the relationships that we do have. And then finally, we're focused on MTSS, the multi-tiered systems of support. Later on this fall, if you would like a presentation on that at a CAL meeting, we'll be glad to bring that in for you. But MTSS has gotten great results for us, and we're committed to making sure that it's deeply embedded in each one of our schools. Finally tonight, I'd like to just kind of highlight some of the things that we talked about yesterday at our end-of-year review. Our graduation rate did improve this year. It is, for the year that just ended, it's the second highest in the history of our school system. We did see increases in our EOC math and English 2 scores, and in the elementary schools, our EOGs and reading and math in third grade improved. We saw 86% of our students successfully complete their online ISS courses, and for North Carolina virtual public schools, 87% of our kids were successful there. Our choice options, again, are attracting new students into the school system, and we're getting improved results from our choice options, so we want to continue to promote that. The Dropout Prevention Task Force did a great job this year, and we're anticipating that our dropout rate did improve. We'll be getting that number a little bit later in the fall. Iredell-Statesville schools, along with Mooresville graded schools, were recognized as a community where our county, Iredell County, is now a certified work-ready community. Don't hold me to this number, but only about a fourth of the communities in North Carolina have that distinction. So that is something that's very important to economic development. And as our community grows and attracts more employers to the community, that's an important distinction to hold. We also saw an increase last year in our post-secondary credits, our early college credits that our kids are earning. Our crime and violence numbers decreased last year, along with our rate of out-of-school suspension, so we're very, very proud of that. 92% of our families reported to us last year that they had at least one parent-teacher conference during the school year. We want that to be 100%, but 92 is a pretty good showing. Last year we had 180 business partnerships and 131 faith-based partners in our school system. And this past weekend we watched some of our faith-based partners as they held a back-to-school bash at Statesville High School Saturday and served over 1,200 kids with new backpacks, new shoes, and school supplies. The week before we did that down in Mooresville with the faith-based community there. We had more than 79,000 volunteer hours in our school system last year. Our United Way goal, we didn't quite make our goal, but we did raise $72,900 for the United Way last year through campaigns of employees giving and student-led initiatives. It's already been mentioned tonight that our county funding did improve this year, and so we want to thank our partners, the county commissioners, for the faith and confidence that they put in us and for the additional funding that they've provided for us. State funding did improve. That's a big celebration, and the average teacher is going to get a 3.3% raise this year. We have 5 new principals in our district this year, and as we posted positions and held interviews, I was very, very pleased at the number of candidates that applied for these jobs. At Statesville High School, for example, we had 19 applicants for that position. And so I think that's a good, strong, solid representation for our school system that people are interested in us. Already mentioned that in July we opened our third early college. This year, Woodland Heights and NB Mills are working together on a blended learning initiative. And both of those schools will be looking this year at how to put more technology in the hands of kids and to have that technology impact the learning of those students. This year, Lake Norman Elementary School is opening our second DI program. It's the first in the Mooresville community. Their principal reports to me that he's gotten good, solid numbers of enrollment. He's got 40 kids enrolled in that program. He's got 40 kids enrolled in his regular kindergarten program too. So again, just phenomenal accomplishments for the school system. That's just a snapshot of some of the things that we talked about yesterday. And again, I too, Mr. Page, echo your words that we have just finished a great school year. We're kicking off with great anticipation another wonderful school year for the parents and the kids in our community. And we do thank you, Board of Education, for your leadership and your commitment to the kids in this community. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. A few announcements, and I almost want to steal Chuck's thunder, but I'm going to let him have one at the end.
Do it.
August 17th, 18th, teacher work days. 22nd to 24th are our required work days. First day of school, August 28th. Then we meet again, and please note that we meet on Tuesday, September the 5th, not Monday night due to Labor Day, and then September 11th is our regular board meeting here. Chuck, what is going on September the 1st through the 9th? Let me check.
Charles, help me, Sidney. Help me,
Has
Charles.
something to do in Troutman?
And it is in Troutman. It's not a parade, though.
No, it's not.
Now, if you don't hurry up and do it, I'm going to do it.
Has something to do with the fairground?
The 82nd Annual Iredell County Fair will be September 1st through the 9th. And on Friday, September 1st, the day of opening, at 7 o'clock, you're all invited to a ribbon cutting at the fairgrounds. So it'll be our 82nd fair. Yes, the county county fair. Kids will be there on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I believe, at $1 to get in for all this.
What day were you asking us to come?
Friday, September the 1st is a ribbon cutting, 7 o'clock.
I think we got a home game with Alexander Central.
You can come to the ribbon cutting and leave for the kickoff and leave and go back home.
7:30 kickoff, right? So you can fly up.
Make it back up.
All right.
And September 21st is our district meeting, right? It's in Kannapolis for District, we're 6 now, I believe, aren't we? District 6.
Yeah, we're
I
District
think that's
6.
correct. District 6 on Thursday. Yep.
Do we have any other business? Chair entertains a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. We're adjourned. Is this